Best you got, all your wit won't suffice. Force of your innermost hatred and despise. Pain you cause to average hearts that beat on time. Rumors and stabbing, pitfalls and colliding. I am wonderful inside and out, and I will be fine, yeah. Second-hand, fake-ass friends, I don't care. Colorful deception, fact, you're hating me behind my back by breaking laws and foul phone calls, but you can see that I am wonderful inside and out, and I will be fine, boy. I said, if I had known the trouble I'd bear, would I be out of this time? Would I be out of this time? So bright like you can howl at the moon, kiss the air, gnash your teeth. Well, I smile, 'cause I know, I am wonderful inside and loud, and I will be fine, yeah. I am wonderful inside and out, and I will be fine, yeah. I am wonderful inside and out, and I will be fine.
One thing I've learned, if you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego. Or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
All right. Oops. That was a little loud. All right, we're back, and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Othayanchik, the Black Knight. Talk Radio. In year, what, I don't know, is it 16? Yeah, I think we're entering 17, I think it is. I don't know. The years blend together all the time. I've been on the air a couple weeks. A lot of stuff going on. I'm telling you, part of my talk tonight will be about there's going to be a lot of garbage going on, a lot of high-energy trash that you really got to not get involved with for your own safety. We'll get into that in a minute. You can join us live in the Spreaker chat room, which then converts to sort of like a message base. You can leave messages after the fact. I see PG. Actually, I didn't know what T. Glenning. I don't know what his first name is, or her first name, when I think about it, but I think it's a he. But he's in the chat room. Good evening. You can join us live while I do this show, talk, I should say, show. Put on a show. But while we're doing it live in the Spreaker situation, and then it'll be uploaded to YouTube. No video. I don't really need. I'm just me sitting there talking in front of a mic. I don't really need Timothy. I'm sorry. Okay, never really. When you deal with people online and print and you see their names, you don't really think much about it until you go to open your mouth. And then when I see his name pop up along the way, I just, okay, it's him. And when I actually go to say it, it's like, hey, you know what? You don't know what his name is, or if it's a he, for that matter. Anita's Rumble's in there, too. So I welcome all to those into the chat room. And so what will happen is this show will be done live here, and it will upload in YouTube and be available to download all free audio on Spreaker. In fact, you don't need to even have Spreaker you don't have to have an account or anything to listen to it. You just go to Spreaker.com, look for Feet to the Fire Radio. Links are on my website, feettothefireradio.com, and then you could just simply listen to it. Or I click it so you can download it. So if you want to download it, listen to it later. If you do get the Spreaker app, it is free. You do get an account that's free, but then you could listen very easily. I like doing it, listening to a couple of podcasts, Jeff Daniel being one of them. I can just click on it. There it is. So there we go. And then it ends up on YouTube, and, of course, feettothefireradio.com will have links to it, blah, 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 blah. All right. Now, I wanted to mention a few things. Current news, of course, the big news today, everyone's heard about it. I don't have to go into it, that the Mueller report has come out, and there's no collusion by Trump or his campaign. Interesting little tagline that'll allow the extremists, liberal extremists, leftists, whatever you want to call them, chew on is it says there is no direct evidence is the phrase being used. So that means there is evidence, but no direct evidence. And gosh darn, if we just had another 20, 30 million in another couple of years, maybe we could find something, which will be the deal on that side. So it is ridiculous, and hopefully the things can move on. The question being now is, okay, now that it's not proven, now what? And of course, the arrests and the Guantanamo stuff is still being talked about. And I mentioned before, I think that won't happen only because it's too dramatic. There's other ways, if any, to do stuff. But I did see the memes are popping up, and they're kind of funny. It is a very serious thing, and I hate to see memes that are just, blatantly nasty. I just don't like them, regardless. But there is one where it has apparently president has been in a picture with a baseball bat. Maybe I'm remembering the picture in my head. Perhaps a sports figure gave him an autographed bat or something, and he was getting ready to swing. And so the meme was, okay, you've had your turn at bat, and now it's mine. And it's a picture of him grimacing, getting ready to swing, and then they got all the pictures of the Lisa Pages and the who's not, whatnots underneath it. So there are some pretty good memes out there. But this is not fun. This is a not fun time. It's not funny. This is a bad time. This is no good. Terrible time. And so I don't want to make light of it in doing on that. Let me check into some of the news stories before I get into my talk. I got to I'll put these links underneath when I'm done. Dershowitz has just been released saying it's a very, very bad day for CNN. They should be hanging their head in shame. Of course, they will not. And Dershowitz is one of those guys who we'll call it a Democratic or a liberal lawyer who has done things like defend the pedophile guy. I believe he what's his name? I can't think of his name now. With Lolita Express, I think he was one of his lawyers. The idea of being a lawyer is supposed to make sure it's a fair trial or what have you, but doesn't mean that they're angels. One thing on the good part I've been finding, I discovered Buck Owens, about 50 years later, and I've been listening to some of the tunes. Great tunes. Great tunes. They're fun. The actual tunes remind me like the Beatles. I think Buck Owens would be the Beatles of country. And I've posted a couple of links to some Buck Owens tunes, one of which is a gospel album he put together. Satan's Got to Get Along Without Me. Yeah, so there you go, Buck Owens. Also, because they said no more indictments are on the way, that means that those who are waiting to be indicted or feared are off the hook now as far as indictment goes, which would be Jerome Corsi, who has took on Mueller pretty headlong with a book he put out. I downloaded the audio book, started listening to it, but I got sidetracked, so I haven't finished it. But he really stood up for it and, put his faith in God and faced jail time for ridiculous entrapment where, the law states you have to purposely lie to be nailed, not just had a memory lapse, and he was able to prove, I think, that he had a memory lapse. And anyway, so he is quite happy, I'm sure, looking at prison for the rest of his life. And now he's not. So it's very good. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Bill O'Reilly, I'm not a big political guy. So Bill O'Reilly, I've listened to some of his comments, and he's really straight up. It's kind of like ground level. Now, I'm not purposely vouching for him, but he came up with a YouTube little talk, or little clip I'm going to find, and these are the things that will be in the election that he's going to talk about. I don't have it with me, so I can't go into it, but I wanted to mention that I've been posting little things on Facebook. Here's a big saying. This is the one of the things, people who are seeing what's going on and are basically powerless to do anything about it in the macro. In the micro, in your own self, you have the ability for personal peace amidst a turmoil, and that's what we should be working on. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But one of the things that I find interesting, and I think this is the dark side, what they would like to do. Oh, there's a giant bug on here. Talk about a bug in the system. One of the things I think Satan, the dark side, however you want to call it, likes to do is they don't want to just win. They want to grind your nose in it. It's like in 1984, they didn't want to just break you. They wanted to break you and then watch you for a while, and then they'll kill you somewhere some other time. It's about not about winning. It's about grinding your face in it. And it seems like if the Satan, I'm going to use Satan as a generic term, whether it be personal or generic, you could take it as you may, would like to see people see what's coming, have knowledge of what's coming and go like, yeah, here is the train. It's coming at me. I'm on the track. I'm tied to the track. I can't get off. Or I'm running down a tunnel. I don't think I'll be able to make out on time. The train is coming. He wants you to know the train is coming. The train is coming closer, and it's closer, and the train runs you over. This is part of the enjoyment of it. And so I came across this post by Herodotus, and I can't see 400-something BC. The worst pain a man can suffer is to have insight into much and power over nothing. So one of the things I think is being done here is giving people the ability to see what's going on and laughing about people squirming, not being able to do anything about it. Now, I think, and I'll get into this in a bit, what I think the spiritual, godly Jesus approach to do is to hold on to that future afterlife, which can't be touched, and to detach from the current situation so that you see the train coming, you've assessed that you can't get out, you've tried. So now, like Bruce Lee does in one of his videos, or one of the movies, Enter the Dragon, he's running around trying to get out of his places, and then all these doors close, and he's locked in this room, and he can't get out. He went real fast, try to get out, then he just sits down in the middle in like a lotus position and meditates. There's nothing that you can do about it. And so I think we should be vigilant and do what we can do, but we can't let it get inside us. If they're going to, through some type of situation, persecute us for whatever reason, and you can't do anything about it, acceptance is a gateway to peace. And remember, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. It's 100% guaranteed. No matter, I don't care if you're one of these, what is these guys who pay $1 million to get on a list to be downloaded in the machines or whatever. Whatever your thing is, you're going to die. Your biological function, you're going to die. And if they try to download you into a robot, guess what happens when you download yourself into the robot? You die. And the best case scenario is a robot acting like you, and you're going like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? But, that's kind of how I try to look at it. Now, I've had a rough while here. Even this weekend, stuff is going on, and it's been very upsetting. And there's not much I could do about things. And I just have to hang on. Do the right thing. Think of love. A bigger picture, the higher picture. Try to address it. See, I got caught into addressing the fallacies involved. And whether you take the mainstream media with Trump, or you take something going on at work or personal life or what have you, and you go to point out, wait a minute, that's not correct. This is the actual facts. This is the deal. You got Lance in the chat room too. How you with Lance? This is the deal, and you point these things out. One of the little sayings I saw, which I liked, is you can't address irrationality with rationality. I mean, it includes for yourself too. So if you're feeling upset, it's very difficult to rationally deal with the issues while you're upset. You have to deal with the upset. And what I try to do, and I recommend, and I'm saying this from like personal practice, not sitting here as some kind of sage with all the answers. Believe me, I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But by the grace of God, I would already be. It would have been over. So what I could just say is you have to kind of hold on to God. And hold on to that and get through it. Realize that at some point you're going to die. Pleasant or unpleasant as life may be, this is a short time, immeasurably short in eternity. And at the same breath, I think one of the things that have Jesus has shown us is that God working through Jesus, and however your theology is in terms of Jesus, God manifesting, Jesus manifesting the Father, you have God intimately involved in a human being's life, manifesting through that life and feeling the pain and suffering. When, of course, a God doesn't have to do that. And so you have the personal touch of God as well as the kind of the corporate, he's the creator of the universe. He knew everything was going to happen. He designed the universe like a big bowling ball to spin just at the right time to hit the right pin. And so that's what I kind of do. Because I've had to shut down my servers. It's got nothing to do with me going off YouTube. I just don't feel like sitting looking into a camera and talking. I can do it here. But I got to cut stuff down. I mean, I'm going down. I don't like to talk about it on the air much because, one, I don't want to complain and, somehow parlay it into a plea for money or support or nothing like that. Plus, I don't like to talk about things because in my personal theological outlook, the dark side can't read your mind. It can feel your mind. It can't read your mind. It doesn't know intimately what's going on. It gets your feelings. You get some impression. It could look at past practices. But when you come out and say something out loud or you write something, there is a way to share these type of things. So I almost feel on one hand you want to reach out and help for people who may be moved. On the other hand, you don't want to get into too much detail because you're given like feedback. It's like tracer bullets to see what hit and how hard it is. Oh, good. We'll try that again. It seemed to do pretty good. And so those are why you're not going to hear me get any kind of details. But it's tough. Almost didn't do the show again today, but then I meditated for a while. I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk. I'm not a professional here. I'm not trying to put on some front. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm not trying to push any agenda. I'm just talking. And the people who are listening can listen and do what they wish before that. There is, here's a visual that I guess I could put on YouTube, but there's a link to a video that has the three circles named 1984, and they're overlapping. You've seen this where they have the color circles overlapping, Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451, and then in the middle where they all overlap, it says you are here. And that is very true, what's going on in this world. This is not over. Trump didn't win. We didn't win. It doesn't win. Whatever you want to call it, it's still in a war. Now, I wanted to read something that I wrote down. I actually commented to someone else's post somewhere else in Facebook, and I decided to share it out on mine. Well, actually, let me stop there for a second. I thought I was shadow banned because I'm posting stuff and I'm getting no responses. No, nobody has to respond. But people usually do. And then I realized that one post I made was directly for a couple of people, and I changed it to fit to those people, and somehow that became my default. So I started since the middle of February, I've been posting with only those few people who have responded. But so that's what was going on with that. It wasn't that it was. The old saying is that you're not paranoid enough to really have to get you, but sometimes you're just duh. But anyway, when I cleaned up stuff, I wanted to repost this. This is a quote from the Bible. I'm not a Bible thumper. The Bible, to me, contains tremendous, fantastic information, but I'm not one that says every single word in there is written by God. I'm saying it's inspired by God, and man wrote it down. So whenever you get man involved, there's problems. But there's a lot of great stuff in there that managed to get through mankind and actually get done well. And one of those, we got calls coming in here. I'm not really. Let me see if I can take this. I'm not really prepared to take a call. Hello. Hello, you're on the air?
It's bad. Say again?
There we go. I think I got you there. Hello, you're on the air on Feet to the Fire?
Hi, James. How you doing?
All right. Well, I wasn't really prepared to take calls, but you're here, so what can I do for you?
Okay, well, you know what? I'll say as long as you can hear me okay. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little distorted, but I can hear you.
It's horribly distorted for me, but as long as you can hear me, I just want to say one major point. I listened to you 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I just came across you again because you inspired me in an amazing way. But I'm just kind of a little bit disappointed that why are you still focused on the nonsense of Trump, the media? This is all WWF nonsense. This is all just Smoke and mirrors. Why even get so frustrated about this? You're a smart, intelligent guy. You've inspired me into so many new levels of ways in my life. I just found you tonight talking your show, and it's like, why are you so fixated on these idiots?
I would not consider myself fixated on them. It is news. It is affecting our lives. It is something that is going on that could cause collapse of civilization as we know it, if allowed to do it. And it's not that we can do anything about it per se, but we might. And so
we can't do everything about it. We don't give our energies to it. That's the most important thing we can do. Like I'm saying to you, James, you absolutely inspired me, but at the same time, I'm afraid that I don't want to sound like some pompous ass, but I want to say that it seems like you haven't progressed from
you kind of are.
Years ago till now, where you're still
you are kind of sounding like a pompous ass. Now I think about it.
Trump, they don't mean anything.
Right, so we'll just take care of that. I've inspired him. Maybe I inspired him not to bother me. So anyway, back to this this aspect of the verses is that, again, the Bible contains so many great stuff, and I tend to focus on Jesus' words and what Jesus says, and I think that's the best benefit. I think if I had to suggest somebody who's going to read the Bible, read the red letters. I think it's great stuff because, of course, in Christianity terms anyway, Jesus is the center of Christianity. And in the aspects of, let's say Jesus was correcting the theology of the day, and I think that Jesus' principles can be used to correct the theology of today. But one of the things that was been said by Jesus was very interesting, is referring to the end times and whatnot. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened. Those things must take place. But it is not yet the end. For nation, and I'm going to add nationality, will rise against nationality. In kingdom, I'm going to say governments, will rise against governments in various places. There will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pains. Then, this is the important part, because we're seeing this starting to happen. Then they will deliver you, that is, you being followers of Christ or Christian principles, to tribulation, and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nationalities because of my name. At the time, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets, and I'm going to put down the word liars. Okay, so let's pull back the false prophets into prophet being truth, truth sayer, and false being false truth. Fake news will arise and mislead many, because lawlessness is increased. Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Now, it's very important. This is where I think we're at now. Now, interesting enough, there are people throughout the past have thought that they were in positions where they could be in the, quote, end times. Jesus is around the corner. I mean, this has happened many times. I mean, in fact, back in the first century, they were waiting for Jesus to come back, 2,000 years ago. And if you look back through your history of various churches and beginnings of sects and whatever, most recently we had Harold Camping was talking about Jesus returning. And then you had Jehovah's Witnesses back at the turn of the century around that area, about 1910. I forgot what it is. Right? Just don't bother calling me, okay, if you're listening. Okay. I don't have time to go figure out how to turn off the 800 number, so just don't bother. I always thought Jesus was coming at any time. Okay, he's coming, and then it doesn't come, and it kind of fades. Well, guess what? I'm going to be harassed now with phone calls. So let me see. I'm going to have to take the time, I guess, to go in there and turn off the 800 number. See, this is the beautiful thing about doing this kind of stuff. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. This is the kind of harassment we're talking about. It doesn't mean that, people are going to come in and cut off your arms or nothing like this. This is the idea that there is aggravation that's trying to disrupt when you get spiritual. You're going to find these things will come on. Things will happen. You get a phone call. You get, some kind of hassle at work, or, a mechanical problem, or, some event, a computer glitch. Something will happen that will end up disrupting the flow. And it's important to stay on course and on chart to deal with this stuff. But many thought, and Jesus may be coming again. I am not a person who is into the rapture. I've studied for many years, going back to Dr. Jack Van Ippe in the 70s. Gosh, what does that make it? 50 years? Almost, 40 years, let's say. And I'm not saying it's not coming. There isn't a rapture coming, but it's something that was kind of created by man, in my opinion. But I think the tribulation's coming. So I'm kind of working on that. And if Jesus comes and pulls us all away, amen. Amen to that. But if not, we're going to have to be aware and not freak out and deal with these things. And this is what that verse says, what I think is pretty good. Many liars will come and mislead many, and because lawlessness is increased, people will grow cold. They can't deal with all of it. They just got to shut down and get away. And that way lawlessness will be allowed to increase. And I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying to not be emotionally attached to it, because, again, going back to what I said, it's all about emotions. The dark side, devil, satanic, Satanism, whatever, is all about connecting with your emotions. What do they do historically? They torture people and they do a bad thing, especially kids and whatnot, because they feel that emotion, the negative emotion. And so this is why you can't get angry, because they like the anger. And also I want to mention, I think, that when negative entities, actually I'm skipping around, and I apologize, but it's stream of consciousness here, and those who have been listening for a long time know what's going on. I think how would I say this? The veil is lifting, or the smoke through the glass dimly, the smoke is clearing. I think that that's next level is becoming closer. In other words, it's easier in a physics sense for energies in that other realm to get involved in this realm. Now, I don't know if it's going to break open and they're going to walk through one day. I mean, I'm not going to get into all of that, but keeping it as it is now, I think you are going to find that the dark side is going to be able to reach in and affect people easier and more. Now, just because you're Christian, you believe in Jesus, you're saved, however you want to phrase it, doesn't mean you're going to be immune from harassment. Read Job about that. And I think what is happening now is that it's easier for them to cross over. So what is the best way for them to intervene is through lower emotions. That's that negativity that they are tapping into. So if they can stir up all kinds of fear and problems in the world, and then you become worried and upset, that sends off a color of a light. Let's look at it in terms of light, right? They're in the darkness trying to reach over to you, and they can't see you because they can't see higher emotion. They can't see literally. But when you get nervous, upset, scared, mad, angry, you start to glow in a color that they can see. So just picture yourself in a dark room, and all of a sudden you see a light pop on. You go to the light, so to speak. And what they do is they see that negative emotion click on like a light bulb, and then they go to it, and they can shoot more of the same through it. You're upset. All of a sudden you feel yourself stirring more upset. You start getting ideas of, well, maybe this is going to happen, and maybe this is going to happen, and oh my gosh, that's going to happen. And what is happening is that they're on the other side. They're like throwing little fuel on that fire to make that light grow so they can suck that energy. And what happens is when that mood passes, when you're able to get out of that negative energy, that light will dim and they will lose contact. Now, this is to me. This is the general format for negative entities screwing with you. And if you look into that negativity and focus in it and attach to it and live it, now you have someone who's around with you and hassling you. And so, and this is not saying, it's not saying you're giving them permission. It's not saying that they're seeking you out individually, personally. It's just that when you're in that darkness and the only thing that you can sense is the lower emotional energy, they're going to be attracted to that. Now, the earth right now has got all kinds of negativity going on. Starvation, wars, rumors of wars. What was that? Rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes. You know, I wonder about some of the events happening on the earth. Yes, there's always earthquakes, as it says. These things must take place, but it's not the end. So there's always going to have been earthquakes and all this. But now, there seems to be a deeper connection with that negative side so that it can be fomented easier from the other side. And so if you have a situation of a large problem, let's say an earthquake happens by itself, and there's a lot of pain and suffering from it. Well, there's all the little light bulbs come on, all the negative entities come by, and they start sucking up this negative energy and doing what they can to keep the fire burning. And the answer to it, of course, is love and not fear. I mean, look at the negatives of the negative emotions. So you say fear, the opposite of fear is not fear. All right, so what is not fear? And you can look at it, it can manifest in many ways. It can be love, you're trying to helping somebody, explaining it, you're calm about it, not fear. Hate, the opposite is not hate. And that could be in various forms of, love, care, helping, empathy would be not hate. Pain would be not pain. And so you could be soothing. You can actually deal with it on a medical, physical level. You can deal with it on an emotional level to help with the pain. Those are the answers. And an individual who is in this situation where they have this fear, when they do call upon God and meditate in God, remember that one particular time when Jesus healed the demonic possession, and they said, we tried, but we couldn't do it. And he said, well, that's because you don't have enough faith. He said, these things need prayer and fasting. There sometimes is a mechanism involved, especially for people who are lower in abilities, to deal with these things. So when all this stuff comes along, when nationalities rise against nationalities, what is the response? Not to rise against nationalities. When the governments rise against governments, what is the response? Not to rise against the government. You just take the negative of the negative and then say, what does that mean to you? Because different people at different times can actually deal with these things in a different way. So when it says they hate you, your response is to not hate. It doesn't mean you have to like them. I got that. But the whole idea of this is not to hate. Because when you hate, you start to have this connection. I mean, I hate to bring up movies, but sometimes the movies do bring out these things, whether they know it or not. When you get into Star Wars, you saw the dark side with the Emperor wanted to foment the hate of the Emperor into Luke so that he would trap him. I mean, that I think is a spiritual truth, regardless of whatever overreaching stuff could be in the movie incorrectly. So you have these aspects of it. And when the false prospect, when these liars, I mean, look at the news stories, that the so-called fake news and all this stuff. I'm 61 years old. I've never seen the news go holistically negative and hateful and lying like this. Never. I mean, in the past, they wanted to get Nixon and all this stuff, but there was nothing like this at all. It's amazing. And that to me says that, one, of course, the influence of the negative side is greater, is what I'm saying, but also it's important that whatever is going on be stopped. And if nothing else, the people have a lot of people have risen up to get in, to oppose the what was going on. So the other aspect I want to mention on this would be in this negativity is that the dark side can't get you. They're trying to get you to get you. So if you allow them, and I'm not saying this like, well, it's your fault, you allowed them. No, I'm not saying that. You get caught up in a scenario, and where these so-called sins of the flesh, as it was called by Paul, I think it was. When you have these things that take hold, which would be hateful, jealousy, lust, all these things, if they take hold in there, again, just picture yourself when you feel like, okay, I'm really mad. This guy's really pissing me off. I'm mad. Oh, I just lit a little light up, and now the little demons and demonettes or whatever are coming to start to foment that light to keep it nice and bright so they can suck energy off it. So, you could use things like that where you picture that, you go, wait a minute, and now you say, I'm going to anti-hate. I'm going to go the opposite. It doesn't mean you go up to the person who is causing you trouble and go, I love you, man. I love you, man. No, it means that you stop that flow of hate and realize if somebody is doing this harm to you, what karma are they making for themselves? At some point, all of this stuff will be stripped away from them, and their naked spirituality will see the negativity that they have caused, and they will be in great suffering. If you want to see, I think what hell is, it's going to be people having the covering of what is fomenting all this negativity, have that taken away, and then their actual soul comes through and sees this, and it's like, oh my God, you mean I did that? And it's going to take a while for that to work out. And it's not pleasant. Now, people, that's why I don't want to get involved in a literal thing, because when you start, well, no, hell's really fire and all that. Well, fine. I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm trying to say is that you could lose what things are by making this cover. Like, well, I'm okay. I'm saved by Jesus, and yet I'm doing all this manipulative stuff. But I'm okay. I'm saved. Oh yeah, okay. So what? You're not going to hell, but now you're going to be looking at some of the things you've done, and you're going to be creating your own version of it, because in a world of amazingly open emotion and knowledge, that will be painful to go through. Right? So that's kind of why I'm saying that. I'm going to go back. I was going to say something, and I think I got off at a tangent. Okay. I'm going to go back and talk about Trump stuff, which will aggravate our caller, but I'll do that in a minute once I continue on what I'm doing here. So I'm going to say, I'm inspired by a person I was talking to earlier, but I was going to say this anyway. I'm going to say that you're going to find yourself, there'll be people out there who will find themselves shockingly, physically being accosted by evil. And it's going to be like, well, wait a minute. How can they do that? Or they can't do that, or whatever. And I'm going to say that I think that this is a time of the revealing we're in. I mean, if you want to give Trump credit for anything, he's part of the revealing of the evil that was under the surface. I mean, people that are friends, all of a sudden are supporting post-birth abortion. They wouldn't have done that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. People would have had a heart attack if that was brought up. But now they're talking about it openly because we're in the time of the revealing. Things are being tore off and exposed underneath. Now, all of us got stuff that's down deep and need to be dealt with. So when yours is torn open, you have to embrace it, accept it, confess it, change it, whatever it needs to do. not try to justify it, not try to explain it, and embrace a delusional aspect of it. And, of course, it gets bigger when you get into what's going on in the media and across the world. So we're in a time of a revealing, and all these things are coming out. And so it was always there to have the post-birth abortion. It was always there. It's just no one had the guts to come out and say it in the open because of the general morality of the times would not have permitted it. But now that the general morality is slipped down the toilet and people are rushing over themselves, tripping over themselves to push that line, so to speak, at a lightning pace. It could never come out. I mean, there are people who have always been socialists on the political scene. It could never come out, like in public, be popular and call for socialism, for example. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying all isms can work if you had the Spirit of God behind it. It doesn't matter what kind of government it is. It all can work. But they're not looking at socialism because of what socialism is about. They're looking at it as a tool for oppression. You know, it's not that they're actually trying to help people. They're looking at a vehicle that they can use to talk you into it, to crush you. And, you know, the great capitalists of the last century did a pretty good job of crushing people economically. So it's not about the ism. It's about how they use it to control you. And we're in a great time of revealing, so that what I think the goal here is God is going to say, look, if you want to have this, you want to have evil, it's your choice. You have free choice. I just want to let you know what you're getting into. Because evil will put a whole lot of frosting on top with a cherry and all this stuff. And when you bite into it and you get the terrible stuff, then you're going to go, wait a minute, I didn't. So God is like, I want you to know what you get into. Here's the deal. When you go into evil, it goes all the way down into killing children, old people, eating them, drinking their blood, whatever it is. This is what it goes down into. This is what you're looking for. And I want you to know this, so if you want to go that way, okay. But the cost of it is the next time frame we're going into isn't going to be 20 minutes. When you're lining yourself up for the next eon, the next age, if you will, the next age is going to go on for a while. And when you step into that age, you might live the entire age. So when you go into an age of love, creativity, unbounded, no need for food, water, or shelter. It's all become natural. You live on the energy of God. You have extra creative powers. You can create music beyond music that you could think of here, limited here in our 3D space. You can create art beyond the limits of art in this area, and so on and so on. But if you decide to go into the negative realms, when you go to that next area, which will be separated from the pre-mentioned area of love, you're going to have more energy of oppression and pain and suffering. You're going to go up to another level. And so you're going to be in that area fighting other super evil beings and crushing each other. You won't have a sheep to shear and lambs to sacrifice. It's going to be it's going to be you against them against you. And that could go on for, thousands of our years, for all you know. You might not be able to die. I mean, some of the things in the Bible that reminds me of this is they were calling upon the mountains to fall on them, to kill them. Well, why didn't they just kill themselves? Because perhaps this was a glimpse of that next area. When you get there and you realize how evil it is, like, no, wait a minute. This is not what I want here. I don't want the mountains to fall on me and crumble me and hide me from it because I can't die, and I have to go through this. And so what God is doing here is, all right, you guys can do this stuff. I'm telling you not to. I've been telling you not to. I've been showing you over the years. You've seen what happens. Mao Zedong, Stalin, Hitler, and I'm not saying that accidentally shooting a wedding, which may have been intentional, it fits right in there. And those people who were involved in it got to see this. They saw what this stuff is, and a lot of them ended up killing themselves and or at least getting PTS, post-traumatic stress. So God is saying, hey, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. And we're going to see in front of us during the time of tribulation, we're going to see a real-world example of what's waiting over there if you decide to go that way. And the people who are choosing a life of love and helping one another are going to be called upon during this time to really kind of shine and help out. And it's going to be a rough time. Now, I'd like the rapture to come and take us out of it, but got a feeling that the people are going to be here to try and help be this example. Now, of course, there's compensation. Everything that you do for Lord, God pays it back tenfold, push down, shake it over, and all that other stuff. So it's not that you're going to lose out anything, but it's going to be very unpleasant. And some people can't make it through, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying that, I'm going to be one who does. I'm looking at it in fear and trembling of what's coming, and the only reason I can keep going is because God. And in fact, another quote I like a lot is, though he may slay me, I will praise his name. It's not that God is going to slay you like some gleeful, evil person. It's, if I can rephrase that into modern phraseology, though I may die in the service of God and in his plan, I will still praise him. Remember, Jesus said about, you have to drink my blood and eat my body. And people were getting upset by those phraseologies. And he looked at the disciples like, well, are you going to leave me too? And, they weren't pleased about his phraseology. They didn't understand it. They were getting, they were a little, but they said, to whom shall we go? You have the words of life. So it's like, hey, I don't like what's coming. I don't like what I see. Where am I going to go? There's only life in God and his ways. And there's a plan, there's knowledge, there's a thing going on, and when it's all said and done, we'll all sit and be amazed. We'll all have, we'll all understand things better and so on. But this is what I'd like to do is, God isn't like, to me, God isn't some mystical kind of thing I can't understand. I think we can understand God in that it's kind of like in metaphors. It's understandable in metaphors while you might not know the intricate physics involved behind it. Excuse me. You might not be able to create an airplane that can fly, but you can understand the principles of why it flies. And I think this is what we're doing here. We're seeing the examples of unfettered evil in power. And another thing I want to mention, that power is not satiated by simply existing. So if somebody has a certain kind of power, and if they're geared toward power, if they're psychopathic, or if they're power oriented, just having the power, just obtaining it, that first step, might be somewhat satisfying. But now you have to wield it. The actual using of power, the wielding of power, is the experience of the power. And the more you wield the power, the harder you want to wield it. It's like a drug, you need more after a while because it starts to wear off. So when you have the examples in history of, Caligula and other people, they have all this power, they're having people killed and all sexual deviancy and all these things, they get bored. They want more power, but they could do everything already. So they're degenerated to the point where they'll do anything. Any thrill of any type of power will be done. No holds barred. It doesn't matter how ridiculous and offensive it is. And this is what I think the ultimate actions are coming. If you want to talk about the Antichrist and all this stuff, if it does happen like a lot of the theology has been saying, this is going to be the ultimate example of power. You have world power. You have weaponry that's beyond anyone's imagination. You have the idea of, I can kill 1 million people if I want to. Oh, well, that was cool. Well, that's kind of boring now. Let's make it 2 million, or let's do this, or let's do that. And of course, the greatest thrill negativity can get, besides killing the innocent, which would be the children and the elderly and whatnot, would be to torture the Christians. You're not seeing Christians. I mean, we'll say real followers of Christ aren't going to be torturing Muslims or atheists or whoever it might be. That's not going to happen. They may not. They may, not agree with the theology as being positive, salvation-oriented. But you're not going to go have them tortured. If they are, then they're not Christians, right? Then it's just a fake badge to allow a psychopath to do whatever. But there's going to be a joy in torturing Christians, because underneath that, the evil is going to be like, yeah, see, you're not choosing with me. Well, I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to torture you and your children. And anything I could think of, it's worse than possible I could think of, it's going to happen. And where's your God now? Why isn't he doing anything? Because he doesn't really care. You're a fool. Follow me, et cetera, et cetera. And, and some people may crack under that, and there's mercy. There's understanding. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's not like you're going to be your own worst enemy in the next incarnate, whatever you want to call it, the next after death. You're going to be basically your own judge. And if you embrace the dark side wholeheartedly and you want to go into it, you'll go into it. You'll go into a world full of this stuff. And, God, I think, has given us, when he created mankind, created in our image, in my opinion, means that we have the ability to create. Unlike all other creation. The devil can corrupt, but he can't create. And there's a jealousy there, I think. And so you have the devil wanting to show God how ridiculous it was to pick these flawed human beings to have this special gift. And so he's going to be twisting it all. So, people who are, if they're listening and they're going, oh, wait a minute, aren't you advanced past this stuff? And you're getting all, old school, old-time religion. Well, I mean, I can understand some of the things I mentioned about what I think hell would be more like than a literal fire. I think it's a good metaphor. I mean, think of the metaphor as being used. Heaven is full of jewels. Well, really, I mean, is that what heaven is? Or at that time, if you were going to try and describe the undescribable positive, you would use it in the most outrageous positive stuff you can come up with, which might be streets of gold and jewels and whatnot. Whereas if you're going to come up with the ultimate evil that's beyond your description, you're going to come up with what's the worst thing that can happen. Well, you could be like set on fire, I guess. Burnt would be the worst thing that can happen. So these are how these are set. That doesn't mean that there's not truth in it. It means that the manifestation of that truth is going to be on a level which will be beyond your comprehension. So, you telling me it's going to be worse than fire? It's going to be better than jewels? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's beyond our comprehension. So to me, that's more motivation to go there than not. So, I mean, the problem here is we're also in a world, and you could, like the yogis in the mountains, you could go up in a mountain and pray and be detached from the world around you and get some kind of personal enlightenment. But, what have you done for the world? We're part of the world. We're in the world, but not of the world. So that when people get involved in politics, like, well, you can't do that. You got to stay away from that. Well, everyone's got talents. And I think, the parable when Jesus said the master gave out talents of gold, I just think that's a fantastic coincidence to call it talent of gold. And how I talk about that particular parable is that God gives out talents, and then how we invest those talents in the world around us is how, we're judged in terms of how did you do in the world that you were part of. And if you use your talent to help people, whether it be small or large, if you have a lot of talent, you can do more. But it's not about more. It's about the attitude of using your talent. So you have to be part of the world and helping the world around you, yet not be brought down by the negativity and the nastiness of the world. It's a tough thing. And I asked God one time in frustration, I'll say stuff out loud to God. Like, so what's good? I mean, what's the definition of good? And it came to my mind, and it could be myself answering myself. I'm not trying to say that God talked to me, but maybe he did. I don't know. Was at any moment do the right thing for the highest good. At any moment do the highest good for all involved. And I said, well, what's good? And then he said, what came to me was the good is the highest best for the situation. So, of course, there's a sliding scale based on situation, but the principles will always be the highest and best for all those involved, including yourself. Sometimes you take it on a chin for your people around you, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they lift you up. I mean, that's the deal. You don't worry about it. You don't try to codify it so then you have a list of things that legalists can tip around, can get around it. It's like the Pharisees. You tithe mint and cumin and dill. You take, a tenth of your dill or whatever, but you disobey the main laws, which is love and charity. Which you should have done these first things along with the other one. So, I mean, this is the kind of the thing we're looking at. And it's a tough deal in this world to do it because you have your own personal hurts. Remember, we're not perfect. We've come from imperfect past. We've added to our own problems. People have added to our problems. And here you are, you're messed up, but you have the Spirit of the living God inside you waiting to be reached out and called upon. And if you develop that kind of relationship, then you have somebody that, if nothing else, you can hold on to as you're being destroyed or whatever. In the best case scenario, you can get ideas and doors will open around you to help you out in a situation. That I think is so important right now because even though it's like, okay, the Mueller report came in and, Trump's exonerated. What do you think? That CNN's going to all of a sudden go like, oh, yeah, you've been exonerated. Let's move on. It's going to continue. It's going to get worse. It's going to get it's going to be just messed up. And while there are solutions that can stop all these things, there are all kinds of powers that are fighting back and forth to not, who don't want the thing solved. So it's a mess. And so you come to me and go, well, so what do we do? Well, you have to go to God. You form that relationship with God. You lay in the bosom, and God will get you through it. It doesn't always work out the way you want, but here I've went through a bunch of stuff in the last few weeks. I'm still here. Doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that tomorrow might not be, okay? But the point is that the ills of the world are all around you, and because we have instant TV, radio, internet, social media, all this stuff, boom, 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 boom. It's right there, hammering you constantly. I get pictures of people showing animals being tortured around the world. Like, what am I going to do about that? I'm going to click on it and do what? Stop it? And yet, I'm empathetic. Empathetic. That's pretty funny. Empathic. Empathetic. So I see this stuff, and it's very upsetting to me. What am I supposed to do? Go hunt down the people who did it and shoot them? There's the negativity. I'm upset by that. It bothers me. It's terrible. What? The light bulb just went on. Wait a minute. We got a guy over here. Oh, he's all upset because of the dogs? Good. Let's massage that a little bit, get it worse and worse, so maybe he'll flip out. You got to, that's why I think a lot of times this whole social media stuff is actually about the worst thing that could have happened to everybody on many levels. So it's just important. It's important to not get involved in the negative. And if you are literally shoulders being tapped on by some entities, angels don't work that way. Angels don't come down and do kind of magic tricks for you and all this stuff. They don't do that. If you look at all the occurrences of angels, they're kind of like, if they're even noticed, they're in and out and gone. A A lot of times the angels that are around don't even know they're angels. In fact, I did when I was thinking about this beforehand, I thought about Jude. Jude is a good book to read. It's short. But it's important to not get ego involved in this. You don't want to say, Satan, I command you, you want to have autonomy, and you want to say, I call upon the Lord. And I had it. It was a bad dream. If it was a real encounter where I called, I said, as an autonomous child of God, I forbid this you that bother me. And if that's not good enough for you, I got Jesus and Michael backing me up. That's where the power is, not me. The power comes through me. And a good example of this is in Jude when Michael, the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, the Lord rebuke you. That's so important. Here's Michael. If anybody could kick the devil's ass, it's Michael, right? And yet, rather than be tempted into using his own anger or spirit to fight the devil, he did what he was sent to do. The Lord rebuke you. And that's so important when you have negative entities or negativity weighing on you. It's like, where did this come from? You say, the Lord rebuke you. I love God with all my heart, mind, and soul. God is and of everything. And I pledge him my life and my love and my allegiance. And the Lord rebuke you. And if you're set on fire and killed, it doesn't matter. It might matter for about 8-10 minutes, but you know my point. Point is that we're all going to die on this planet. And if I can distill life down into one sentence, we've come here to experientially choose between good and evil, so that when we go into the next realm, our chains, our limits of our power will be loosened and we'll be let loose into a field of to do this power and creativity. And it's your choice what if it's going to be a negative one of utter horror and fighting and destruction, or in a positive one of growth. And God will be here to help you through this. And I like to say, when Jesus came here, it's so important to read his words, because to me, Jesus came to talk to the human mind. You know, he talked in flesh, talked to the human to human. Here I am, a human stuff, right? And God's Spirit works on the inside through the spiritual side. So what Jesus was a jumper from the human ego mind to the human soul, where God is already there waiting. And that's why I think Jesus is that bridge between this. And his teachings are the key. I mean, you can call out Jesus to be saved in a classical sense, and that's great. But all of the people who knew what was going on, James, the book of James, another great book to read, is that by doing what Jesus said, builds that bridge so that you have a bridge between your physical ego life and the eternal life. Your ego wants to live forever. It looks around you and it sees everything from pets to plants to other people dying, and they're gone. Well, I don't want to go. I don't want to die. Jesus has the words of life. When you die, you don't die. There's no death. Your consciousness moves right along, and you're united with your soul. And if you have built some type of bridge for that transfer, the more pleasant that transfer is. But if you have not built a bridge and in fact went the other way, now you're going to be forced to reconcile this at that time And I think my personal opinion is most will choose to run away from God at that time rather than ask for mercy. So it's so important to build the bridge. And how do you build the bridge? Just read Jesus' words. And I read the Sermon on the Mount, fantastic thing. I love how biblical scholars talk about, Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, he didn't actually sit there on a mountain and did the sermon. It probably was a collection of his sayings put together in a narrative so that, he didn't actually have the Sermon on the Mount, but they created this sermon to package his sayings. I'm like, so those are his sayings? Yeah. Well, then who cares? Who cares if he really did a Sermon on the Mount or if it's a collection of his sayings? Who cares? This is why I don't get in these arguments. It's ridiculous. You're arguing about how many angels fit in the head of a pin while you're falling off a cliff. So to me, you read the red letters in the Bible and follow the principles that are in there, crying out for God, for help. I mean, I say crying out for God. God does not make you want to cry. No, I'm sorry, you got to get on your knees and cry and crumble. I want to see you grovel. That's the devil. That might be some of the versions of God in the Old Testament might be actually Marduk or somebody else masquerading. If you have to go look into the Holy Virus work, that book, and read that book for information on that. That's why I turn to Jesus. If I want to know about God, I'll read what Jesus says. Not what the Old Testament says, though there's good stuff in there, but some of it's been corrupt. Let's just see what Jesus says. Well, what really happened? Well, what really happened at this time? Were we created here? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is building the bridge so that when we die, which we will die, we can walk over to that other side in a more pleasant manner. That's all that matters. That's not all that matters. And how do you do that? Help one another. When you help one another, you build the bridge. When you're kind and loving and you're not angry, you're building a bridge. When you're angry and mad, you're tearing down the bridge. Jesus set up the bridge and is telling you to walk over it and build your own bridge, let's say, along with it, so that when you do go over there, you got something to work with. Yeah, I know, depending upon what theology from, you're saying I'm a heretic, and whatever. That's why I'm not in a church, because no one's going to agree with me. And that's fine, because I have to deal with God. And I'm only saying these things. You don't like it, don't listen. Turn it off. No problem. And if some of it sticks and it's good for you, then good. I'm very cautious of how I'm doing this. I'm only doing it because I feel I need to. That's my talents that I've been given, is I figured out some things that are true, and I want to share them. Whether they're absolutely really true or not, and most likely everything is not absolutely really true. It's a metaphor, or it is a analogy of it's the right principle. The details might be different, but this is what I put out there. I don't have any monetary connection. You're not giving to a fund. I'm not starting a church. I'm not building walls. I'm not standing up in front of people preaching. I'm sitting behind this desk talking to a mic, not knowing if 1 or 1 million people listen. It doesn't matter. Because I just want to put out this information. There's no reason why I went back from YouTube. It's like there's no reason for me to sit there and look at a camera. There's no reason. Now, if I got a guest, I have stuff I want to show you, fine, we'll do that. I have the technology here to do it. And that's where I'll go. Now, let me go back from the spiritual a little bit into the number one thing that is a problem in the next coming election is with voter fraud. So I came up with a simple solution that will never happen, but I shouldn't say it will never happen. It's that once you hear what I'm going to say, you're going to go like, yeah, right, that's going to happen. Expunge all voting registrations. Throw everybody out. Require a photo ID that needs proof of citizenship and residence to obtain that ID. So it could be state, it could be a federal ID, it could be something paid for by, we're throwing trillions of dollars away in war and whatnot. Let's throw some money into an ID. You have to go prove who you are, prove of citizenship where you live, get the ID, You have to register to vote with that ID, and you have to vote with that ID. You do that, voter fraud disappears. Now, on the computer side of the voter fraud, up the chain, there might be problems, okay? But at this point now, with the people wanting the people to come in from across the border and all of a sudden be given citizenship or cheat voting, obviously it's trying to pack the ballots so they don't have the ability on the other side yet to do it. So that should be done. And I think it should take an effort to vote. You know, people are going like, well, if people aren't going to go register, you're disenfranchising. You're causing people, what's the word they use? Voter suppression. No, it takes work to vote. It should take work to vote. Should be work to register. Excuse me. It should take work to register. It should take work to vote. I take off work to work. It costs me hundreds of dollars to vote every year because I take the day off to make sure. I try to see if I can let me take a drink here. It should take works to vote, effort to vote. I mean, you got to have a library card, driver's license, you name it. It takes effort to get it. It should take effort to vote. You should actually listen to what the issues are. Look behind around the issues. Of course, a lot of it's gobbledygook on the mainstream. Look around. It takes effort. It takes an effort to get properly registered and show up to vote. I actually take off work. I already said that. Of course, people who are shut in, military, travelers, and all that can absentee vote, but they should be guarded with like the crown jewels against tampering and should be actually counted in every election. Vote harvesting and proxy voting should be absolutely illegal. Voter fraud and electioneering should be met with serious prison time. If I can go further, term limits should be imposed. All of Congress and the president and his or her cabinet income should be audited every year while in office, including their spouses. A millionaire who gets elected doesn't bother me as much as an elected official becoming a millionaire. Any elected official or public servant convicted of corruption should have a multiplier of 2 or 3 times the regular service for the crime, time for the crime. Plus, paid lobbyists should be outlawed. I mean, on one hand, we're living in a spiritual world, and we're going to leave this world and move on to another reality. But on the other hand, that action is tied to our action in this world. And so it's important that we take the action in this world. When we can, we do what we can as you go. You know, and Jesus gave the Great Commission, go ye therefore and teach all nations. If you look into the Greek behind that, you can translate it as you go. In other words, as you go in your life. You don't have to be a preacher. You don't have to be a apostle or whatever they want to call it. You could be a guy working on cars. As you work on cars, live your life in such a way that people see the glory of God in you, and they'll be marveled, and they'll ask you, and you'll be a witness to what the Spirit of God does in a person by your actions. By your actions, they will know you. Your words are worthless without actual actions. Read James, great book. Great book. I think James is the only disciple that got it, frankly. All right, I think I'm sure I left stuff out. I don't have like a big script plan. I mentioned Jerome Corsi. I'm going to look here. I got some stuff. I'm not going to get into McCain stuff and all that. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I guess we'll leave it on a high note. God is the most important thing, and Jesus is the way to God, best way to God. You know, and I don't get into arguments. People say, what about Buddhism and what about people or good people or atheists? I don't get involved with that. I needed God and Jesus working in my life to help me get through life. It continues to happen. That's what I'm saying. And, you know, that's all I can say. That's all I can say because I can't say no more. I want to take a couple people out in the Spreaker chat room and hanging out. Let's see, Kanita's Ramble. Let's see, that would be Charles, and then there's Tim, Lance. Thanks for hanging out on there. This will be uploaded to YouTube, after I'm done. And if you're listening on YouTube, get over to Spreaker. And if you actually log in there, it's free and get an account, whatever. I know it's another password, and you can have your browser remember it. But you can hook it up so that you'll be notified when these shows are, if you're inclined. And you could join in the chat room. You also can leave messages afterwards. So I think that's it. One of the reasons why I like to do the radio too is I can play my intro and outgo music stuff, because it's kind of weird when I'm playing the music while I'm sitting there staring at the camera. It's like I should be talking, Hope we got someone else popped in. Milton. He said thanks. Well, thank you. And here we go. We'll see you next time. God bless. God bless. What a great phrase that we could be using. Oh, I can't do that. That's right. I can't play that. I forgot that's got part of someone else's stuff in there. I'm going to have to edit that. I'm sorry about that. There we go. That's my song. I guess I can't be copyright for that. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync Radio network of stations.